Hi there. My name is Barzan. I'm the founding president of the Biorejuvenation and Anti-Aging Research and Technology Group, or BART for short. We are a student club that has been recently established at Seneca Polytechnic. We are the first student club of its kind created in Canada that is explicitly aimed at researching human biological rejuvenation. Our mission is to cultivate a student-led group looking at the scientific, philosophical, and societal implications of technologies and interventions revolving around human biological rejuvenation and anti-aging technologies more broadly. This presentation is meant to give an overview of who we are, why this club was created, to speak briefly to the opportunities in the space, what activities our group will be engaged in, and how to connect with us and join us to contribute. Here's a quick overview of what this presentation will cover. We'll start with who we are and define the core concept of biorejuvenation. We'll cover the why, the significance of this field, and the unique opportunity that BART provides. I'll speak about the multidisciplinary nature of our group, the big questions that we're trying to tackle, and review some of the activities that we've currently planned. I'll also give a very brief overview of the current landscape of this emerging field. Finally, I'll go over how you can join us and how to connect and stay in touch with us. At our core, we're a group of forward-thinking students dedicated to exploring and defining the frontiers of the advances in human health. Our core mission is to define and advance what we are calling biorejuvenation research. This is a term that I'll explain in detail in a bit, as a rigorous scientific discipline through exploration, discussion, research, and collaboration. I'm rather proud to say that BART is in fact Canada's first and only student-led community focused specifically on these types of interventions. And in fact, at least to the best of my current knowledge and research, we are at the moment of this recording the only active student club in this field in all of North America. We aren't just attempting to study existing science, and we're not a student club that's interested in health trends or is merely just a group of futurists who are sharing articles and so forth. Our aim is to actually bring together and create spaces for the advances being made in multiple disciplines in order to define and build the intellectual foundations of an entirely new discipline, one that better captures the most holistic and most scientifically rigorous and thorough, as well as the most positive vision for interventions aimed at restoring lost structure and function due to diseases of aging or other diseases. So, what is biorejuvenation? What does that term mean, and why are we using this word in particular? I want to put forward a formal definition here of what I mean when I say biorejuvenation. This is a systematic scientific approach to target biological mechanisms of aging to restore function and repair damage with the aim of investigating, discovering, enumerating, and reversing aging processes. Biorejuvenation is a cognate, 2 words, biological rejuvenation. The human part is implied. In other words, biorejuvenation essentially means human biological rejuvenation. And in other words, that means interventions aimed at altering biological processes with the explicit aim of rejuvenating aged bodies back into youthful states. If you search for biorejuvenation as a search term right now, at the moment of this recording, you'll see there's such things as biorejuvenation dentistry, and there's biorejuvenation in skincare, in something that's called mesotherapy treatment. This is not that. And I'll explain why a more accurate term is needed and why biorejuvenation as a term is a perfect fit for the real, quote-unquote, hardcore anti-aging technologies that we've been searching for. To begin, one great way to explain biorejuvenation is to define what it is not. First, we're not concerned with cosmetic so-called anti-aging treatments that are addressing superficial appearances of aging or relatively more superficial physical mechanisms of aging. Our focus is on the precise biological mechanisms that drive aging itself, the root causes, not surface level aesthetics. That means that you can rule Botox and fillers out. This is not dermabrasion. It is not even nutrient and vitamin injections under the skin. Biorejuvenation here means far more fundamental things, like the fact that we are all slowly accumulating DNA damage as we age, or that the quality and pool of viable stem cells in our bodies degrade over time, or that our epigenome becomes warped over time and the profile of expressed genes take on a more aged phenotype. Second, biorejuvenation is not strictly longevity research, which can often imply a passive extension of life via lifestyle modifications like diet and exercise, which are great and completely foundational to good health, but they are not in themselves sufficient for the restoration of youthfulness. Biorejuvenation is therefore, in contrast to longevity, specifically about active, targeted interventions. And this leads to our final point of distinction. Our field is situated in developing active interventions that are and must be based on a completely systematic, foundational biological understanding of the aging process itself. We want to create a science that has the same level of rigor as physics, which was historically itself derived from mathematics and natural philosophy, and we want this science to be aimed at addressing the issue of human biological aging. The current state of the sciences of aging are missing something. They don't have the necessary level of rigor, and they are not well integrated. And that's the gap that the biorejuvenation paradigm aims to bridge. Another important distinction is within the broader field of geroscience. Biorejuvenation is distinct from geroscience even though it is highly complementary. If you think of geroscience as a foundational field, it's focused on understanding the fundamental biological mechanisms of aging, seeking to identify root causes and discovering potential targets for intervention. Biorejuvenation, on the other hand, is a more applied and technological approach. It's aimed specifically to reverse biological aging processes, in a sense, porting, integrating, and augmenting the knowledge that geroscience and other disciplines provide to create active interventions that restore youthful function. You can think of biorejuvenation as defining and constructing the tooling that would not just accelerate research in geroscience, but also accelerate and facilitate the translation of those discoveries into interventions. Think of it as more like the activities that are trying to give rocket fuel to the aging research that's actually going to get her off the ground and get real, well thought out, high quality, and high fidelity working interventions into people's hands. It's a lot easier to see the distinction between geroscience and biorejuvenation by looking at the questions each of these fields ask. Geroscience fundamentally asks, why and how do we age? It builds our foundational understanding. Biorejuvenation asks, how can we reverse the aging process? And that implies both acquiring a foundational understanding in a systematic manner while also aiming to rapidly transform that understanding into creating reliable working treatments and interventions. BART, as a group, is primarily focused on this second question. Here's a concrete example: cellular reprogramming. This is a real and currently active area of research where scientists are using specific proteins to reverse aging markers in tissues by influencing the mechanisms that control which genes are turned on or off in our bodies, which, as we age, degrades in quality, and this is called epigenetic aging if you're not familiar with it. Cellular reprogramming is also called epigenetic reprogramming, and it turns back the so-called epigenetic clock, but it's not a simple matter because the trick is to ensure that the reprogrammed cells maintain their function and, for example, do not turn into cancerous cells. This is more the type of cutting-edge, deep interventional science that we have an interest in. And this all ties into our long-term vision. We want to help establish biorejuvenation as a distinct scientific discipline, ideally, and we want it to have an equal level of rigor as, say, the science of physics, which, when its ideas started to coalesce and form into a distinct field, was historically derived and evolved from the broader fields of natural philosophy and mathematics. Just as, for example, Isaac Newton's Principia helped formalize physics, we believe that a rigorous, evidence-based approach can formalize the science of human biological rejuvenation, and we want to actually define what that is. So why do this? Why put energy into trying to solve the problem of human aging at such a fundamental level? It's an immense challenge, that's for sure, It's a hard problem to solve. Aging is the root cause of the vast majority of human suffering and disease, and it drives up to 80% of healthcare costs through conditions like cancer, heart disease, and neurodegeneration. However, the opportunity is even greater. On an individual level, we can extend healthy lifespans and improve people's quality of life. Societally, we can transform healthcare from a model of very expensive treatment to one of effective prevention. The economic impact of these types of interventions is estimated to be over 100 trillion US dollars, and for Canada, this represents a chance to be a leader in the next and maybe greatest healthcare revolution. 100 trillion US dollars is nothing to sneeze at. There's a lot of room here for everyone who's active in this field to make a very comfortable living by doing something positive. This field is emerging as we speak. The breakthrough technologies are coming now, and the next 10 years can be the decade of biorejuvenation. But what's in it for you as a Seneca student? First, you have a discipline building role. You can help establish biorejuvenation as a legitimate scientific field in Canada. Second, this group is centered on skill development and application. You can take the unique skills that you're learning in your program and apply them to novel, impactful problems. For example, computer science students can create tooling that accelerates or applies AI for drug discovery, or helps build more advanced computational aging models, or creates software that performs analysis of biomarkers, to name a few examples. But this isn't just limited to tech. Students, for example, in policymaking programs can analyze socioeconomic impacts, build better models for the development of more nuanced policies, and help discover and develop the ethical and regulatory frameworks for these new technologies while proposing strategies for equitable access. We also facilitate collaborative research projects designed to help you generate real-world output, such as technical reports or even independent research publications. These would be helpful to you to build a strong CV and gain recognition in the field. Beyond projects, BART also offers community and networking. You can connect with like-minded students, researchers in the forefront of their field, entrepreneurs working in this space, and other industry leaders. It's also a great place to expand your knowledge. You can master evidence-based health optimization while exploring frontier science. And finally, there's a great opportunity here for leadership development. This is your chance to get in on the ground floor and shape the direction of Canada's first biorejuvenation research community. To achieve these goals, we have to have a multidisciplinary approach. We're creating a bridge for students from all programs because this field needs every perspective. From the core science of aging to integrating technology with things like AI and data analysis, to creating reporting on personalized and tailored evidence-based health optimization, these are all things we have to look at. We have to take a look at the philosophical and societal implications. If this technology existed right now and it was widely accessible, what would it mean? How can we make sure that there's equitable access and that the interventions we're exploring don't make existing inequalities even worse? What's a good framework that critically analyzes existing interventions and systematically identifies what next steps have to be taken where and why? Attempting all of these things is going to beg a lot of big questions. Scientifically, can we actually reverse biological age at the cellular level? Is it possible? This either is or is almost a kind of philosophy of science type of question. The human body is actually very much a black box, and we really do not understand everything about how it works. And if we look at how we are physically embedded into the universe that we are a part of, and how little we understand about the universe itself, it might very well be premature to say that all of our assumptions and preconceptions about biology and biophysics are correct. In the technological discussion, we might ask, for example, how can we project the manner in which AI is going to accelerate biorejuvenation research? How can we ensure that it does, and how do we steer it so that it creates the most positive outcome? Although here we might be diving into more of the technical weeds, so things like system design, component design, calculating the costs of computation, choosing which frameworks and technology stacks, how to best represent biological models in code to simulate things efficiently. There's a lot of technical details that have to be worked through. There are philosophical or psychological questions. Hypothetically, if people were biologically to remain at the age of, say, 20 forever, what would that mean for individual psychic development and whether they would become wiser as individuals over time, or how would that impact the psychological structure of society? On the subject of societal implications, if we had such technologies, how could we ensure that there's equitable access to these technologies and that they don't create a deeply unwanted dystopian scenario where some can stay young forever while others have to grow old and pass away? From an economic perspective, how can we make sure that biorejuvenation interventions transform healthcare and actually bring costs down and not up? How do we tailor these interventions so that either private, individualized, or socialized healthcare models have their costs driven down? There's a lot of work that might not be immediately obvious that needs to be done here. And then on the personal dimension, bringing all of this together, how do we define what evidence-based health optimization means and what is it going to look like in practice? So hopefully you can see by now why defining biorejuvenation as a distinct field, trying to bring age reversal into reality using a painstaking systematic approach makes more sense than just, for example, looking at mechanisms alone or investigating just one very specific avenue of research disconnected from all of these other aspects. So, how will we explore and advance answers towards the kinds of questions that we just posed? Here's a number of different activities that we're going to be engaged in. Research and discussion. We'll hold research, discussion, and journal clubs. We'll analyze papers, develop hypotheses, and even if there is no lab, we can still hold thought experiments or conduct in silico experiments using computer models. We definitely want to engage with experts. We'll be holding guest speakers and interviews with researchers and invite people in related industries to come and teach us more. For skill development, we're thinking of doing things like data analysis workshops, looking at research methodologies, or engaging in scientific writing. These could be things like independent projects that members could undertake to further bolster their learning that augment whatever field of studies they're already engaged in as part of their program. We'd also like to undertake collaborative projects. These could be things like collecting and compiling data to create technical reports or having multiple members collaborate on independent publications. Also, given how fast the field of AI is progressing, this might be a good opportunity to engineer AI solutions and agents that would automate the process of data collection and report writing for us, and this can become an ongoing project that BART provides as a public service to Seneca or the wider set of post-secondary institutions across Canada, or whatever sort of collaboration and mutually beneficial value building we can conduct with our institutions. We'd be sharing our knowledge through social media by creating content, engaging in educational outreach, and driving more interest in this field, both for the club and in relation to whatever program our members are studying in. We'll also be holding networking events. These are opportunities to connect with researchers, entrepreneurs, and fellow students. This last one is quite aspirational, definitely at this moment, but if possible, we would like to organize lab tours and tech demos to allow our members to get hands-on exposure to this line of work. If you're new to the field of anti-aging, geroscience, and all of this might be a lot to take in all at once. I'd like to take a moment and try to quickly cover where the field stands today because it is moving incredibly fast, especially with AI integrations and emerging therapies. Personally, I hope it moves even faster because in my opinion, we can't get the treatments fast enough. Here's a couple of examples of recent breakthroughs. I spoke earlier about cellular reprogramming. Current research is continuing to show that transiently activating special proteins called Yamanaka factors, and these are named after the Nobel Prize winner who discovered them, can reverse epigenetic aging markers without erasing cell identity. In 2024, one study involving lab mice showed both a health span increase, which is the years of life spent in peak health, as well as an overall lifespan extension. This is definitely a major step up from just showing that some particular line of cells stay younger in a petri dish, and it's relatively a lot closer to human therapies, the actual interventions that we want to see. Another very well publicized example is AlphaFold 3, and this is one of Google's AI platforms that shorten the time it takes to understand the molecular mechanisms of disease. And this can be a great accelerator of biorejuvenation research. I might be severely understating this. I don't have a lot of detailed knowledge or personal firsthand experience with AlphaFold 3 or how open and accessible it is, but I'm reading that in this area of research, what would take years is now taking days, and that definitely qualifies as a breakthrough. New material on medical advances and breakthroughs are really accelerating. The knowledge, at least, is progressing rapidly, although in my opinion, seeing these translated just as fast to working solutions that we all have access to is maybe the bigger bottleneck. At the time of this recording, I believe just a couple of days ago, a roundtable from Microsoft Research involving Bill Gates was published that looks at how they anticipate, for example, in what ways AI is already impacting medical solutions and discoveries. And a link to that will be in the description of this video. If we want to be competitive and keep up with this pace of change, we need to come together as a community, as we're far more effective working as a group than as individuals. The opportunity for activity in BART is that this is a place where we can leverage whatever we're learning in our programs to monitor these developments, to create analysis tools and perform those analyses, and make sure that we have the most learned awareness of what's happening in this field at both a bird's eye view and at a more granular level. So basically, we're trying to capture more of the nuances and transmit that knowledge effectively to our members. For those of you who are in technical or computing backgrounds, we'd be simultaneously positioning ourselves into two revolutionary fields that would be right at the intersection of artificial intelligence in healthcare, or AI and biorejuvenation. And these practically go hand in hand because it's just a no-brainer to leverage computation and advanced AI for better healthcare interventions. There's also this question of staying current. We plan on at least exploring, if not developing, automated methods and use our members' expertise to track and analyze emerging research. Okay, so if you got all the way to the end here, thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation, and I hope it was informative. If this sounds exciting to you, we'd be eager to invite you to join us at BART and to become a part of this mission and to build a new field. This will be Canada's first student research community explicitly dedicated to targeted biological rejuvenation interventions. So what are we looking for? Ideally, you'll be curious, you'll be willing to engage with the material, and the sort of person who's excited to explore uncharted territory. The first step is simple. Join our group via the QR code in the slide or use the link which is also in the video description. As for what's next, we have a kickoff event being planned right now. New members will be the first to receive details and invitations, so be sure to sign up and stay informed. Finally, to stay up to date with all of our activities, here's how to connect with us. Our official website is clubs.ssfinc.ca/BART. That's BART. You're presumably watching this on YouTube. Our social media channel link is at Seneca Biorejuvenation. And be sure to follow us on Instagram. That's at Seneca BART. And all of these links will be posted in the description as well. Thank you so much again for your time and your attention and your interest in BART. On behalf of myself and our executive team, we're all genuinely really excited about what we can build together and the kind of future we can create. And we hope you'll join us on this journey. Thank you.